www.atsapllc.com, www.atsapllc.com. ATSAP, let's build together. Welcome back to this episode of Byte Club. I'm Collin and joining me as always is Antonino Fabrero. It is July 5th. Happy belated 4th of July to all of you. We have a really great episode in store for you today. It is a 4th of July special.
Yeah, we are really excited for this episode. The 4th of July is a really special day for all Americans across the country. It's a day full of social interactions, partying, hot dogs, beer, and most importantly, fireworks. And that's what we're here to talk to you guys about today. Is how fireworks and the party culture in the United States kind of intertwine with technology.
Yep. Today we also have some guests joining us. The first guests that are on our show. We're very excited about that. We have Justin Anderson and Mike Cohan, two creators of a hot new party application coming to iOS devices very soon. Thanks so much to all of those who have listened to the trailer and episode 0 that we posted. And anybody who's subscribed and listens to us. We're very thankful to have you, and we look forward to having you listen with us on this episode and ones to come. So if you don't subscribe and you like what we have to say in today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Byte Club is available on all major podcast platforms.
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys are first-time listeners, we thank you for tuning in today. And welcome to Byte Club. Just to give you a gist of what Byte Club is, it's a pop culture and technology podcast where we talk about all the hot topics in the world today and how they intertwine with technology. And so we think we have some really cool ideas to bring to you guys and to chat about. And I think it's really relevant to all listeners. So if you want to learn more about this podcast and who we are and our company ATSAP, tune into episode 0 where we kind of explain ourselves and who we are and what our company is and does.
All right, let's get right into it. As Antonino mentioned a little bit ago in the intro, we're going to be chatting about the technology behind the huge 4th of July fireworks shows and the party culture in America, because the two of those go so well hand in hand.
Yeah. And like I said before, I'm really excited about this episode. The 4th of July is hands down one of my favorite holidays. Me personally, I love getting together with friends and family, chit-chatting, partying, having some food on the grill and drinking some beer. But I'm also a nerd, and I kind of find the technology behind things really interesting. And so, one thing that we thought was really cool was the idea of fireworks and how they play a big part in the 4th of July celebrations across the country. And so we kind of did a lot of research, and we wrote up an actual blog on this on our blog on our website. And we found out that even though during this time, during the COVID-19 pandemic, 80% of fireworks shows across the country were canceled. And while that's sad, we thought that's a really cool way to kind of reflect back on how fireworks shows are designed and produced, because it turns out there's actually a ton of technology involved in it.
Yeah, so you can go over and check out that blog on our website. So you can go www.atsapllc.com/blog. www.atsapllc.com/blog. And you can check out, we have, I believe, 2 blog posts up so far.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Very excited to keep getting some more up there. So go check that out. You can learn a little bit from this episode and also from the blog. So we're very excited. We got some great writers to write some articles for us. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah. Fireworks, did you set off any fireworks yesterday?
No.
You didn't set off any
not.
fireworks?
I did not. Usually we do, but this year, we didn't get any with all the stores being closed. And this is the first year in PA where you can actually buy fireworks here. Because usually I remember we'd have to go to Ohio to get them.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I know I was at my buddy's last night, and thankfully, he ran out to a store about 15 minutes from the south side, Phantom Fireworks, and he picked up some. He went there at like 3 o'clock yesterday, and he said that there was a line that wrapped around the whole building. There were probably like 100 people in line. So he went home, he drove all the way back home, and then went back around midnight, and there were like maybe 40 people there, and he waited in line and grabbed some on the 3rd of July. So we had some fireworks. They were, some Roman candles that just shot off little ones, and then we actually got two like 16 piece ones that shot off and actually went up and exploded.
Oh, that's cool.
Like actual fireworks.
So like real fireworks.
Yeah, they weren't like mortars or anything that you have to put in the ground, and they're like the huge ones. Mm-hmm. But they were big ones that actually went up and exploded, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's wild. That's really cool.
Yeah, ate a lot of burgers, a lot of hot dogs yesterday. The traditional American food on 4th of July. I also think it's really interesting, just as like an anecdote. I went out to buy some chips and snacks yesterday for my friend's place. And it's crazy how you can tell like what day of the year it is just by being at a grocery store. Because like the person in front of me and the person behind me had, I swear, only this. They had packs of hot dogs. They had packs of hot dog buns, chips, and alcohol was not sold at this store, so there was no beer. But it was chips, buns, hot dogs. That's all they had. Person in front and behind me. And then I just had 4 bags of chips, and that was it. So definitely a select food menu for the 4th of July, which definitely. I just something weird that I find fascinating is like when you go to the grocery store normally, everybody has their own specific things, salad, lettuce, produce, meats, and everything. But it was just hot dogs and buns and chips. Super healthy.
Yeah. No, that is funny though. That I never really kind of put that together in my mind. My family, we eat a ton of pasta, so like, other than Thanksgiving, I think we eat pasta for every part of the year, even the 4th of July. But it is a really cool observation. And it is kind of weird though too, because like hot dogs and hamburgers, they're not really like, they're American food, but like they weren't invented here, I don't think. I could be wrong on that, but
no, I feel like it's just the tradition of being outside and drinking beer and grilling, and those are foods that you put on the grill a lot. So, I was actually really excited that we were able to shoot off fireworks. It's not something that I typically do, or something that like I typically was like, oh, we need to shoot off fireworks. But it seems like it was definitely something that was taken for granted by myself, at least in years past. Because I would check out some fireworks shows or just see them on TV. And then with like all of the shows being canceled, and the one in Pittsburgh was canceled.
Right.
The one that usually happens down by the water was canceled. So, it's just crazy to me how we take it for granted, especially for all of the work that goes in to all of these people. The crews plan for months to have these shows for everybody to see, and I feel like nobody really, or a lot of people really don't understand that, how much planning goes into it. Months of planning.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think like a lot of people have this misconception that it's just like an explosion going off inside like a shell. Like there's actually a lot more to it, which, I personally didn't know until I started kind of doing research for this episode and for the blog. And there's some really, really cool things.
Yeah. Like I said, months of planning. And in the olden days, people would go and it would be hand firing. So like that's what I did, last night is you got a match or you had a lighter, you'd light the fuse, you'd run away with your friends, giggling like idiots, and they shoot off. But for these giant fireworks shows where there's like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of just shells and like gunpowder and stuff like that, whatever exactly it is, there's just like it's so dangerous to light that highly powered of an explosive at so close and then just like running away. Now they're just like hundreds or even sometimes like 1,000 feet away and just launch it at the touch of a button on their computer or on their machine. There's so much technology that goes into it, and programming and design software as well.
Yeah, I thought the design software was really, really cool. There's, when I was looking into this, there's at least 3 different software companies that I saw that actually design software that you can open up the software, design the fireworks show. You can like import a 3D model of the area that you're planning on shooting these fireworks off at, and build the show there, and it actually, gets put out onto a computer chip that is installed onto another board, and this board is what actually launches the fireworks, and you can sync it with music, locations, timing, different things. That's just something like you don't really think about. Like you said, fireworks are such an old thing that you don't think that we actually have innovated the way we produce and shoot off fireworks. So it's really cool to think about. I just think that that's something that we do take for granted, and thinking that they just exist, because they just exist for the purpose of holidays and celebrations and festivals. But they're, like you said, it takes months of planning to actually produce these shows and build these different contraptions and software to fire these fireworks off.
Yeah, so these pyrotechnic teams, which are usually full of tons and tons of people, are collaborating with one another for a long time in advance, and they're using these softwares that you mentioned. One specifically is called Finale 3D. And this software is a software in which you can create fully functional fireworks shows rendered in 4K definition, which is really cool. So it's like you can create these shows. And I watched a YouTube video on this. It wasn't actually someone physically creating it. It was just a final product on Finale, and it was awesome. It was really cool. So I do suggest doing that for anybody listening. You can just check out Finale 3D fireworks show on YouTube, and basically you can create, like I said, a fully functional, completed fireworks show rendered in 4K. And it's going to be like a direct model of what you want the actual fireworks show to look like, and you can actually make it at a direct location on Google Maps through GPS. So like I could pick out, if I'm doing a fireworks show in Heinz Field, I could go to Heinz Field on this software and create a fireworks show.
No way.
And it's going to show the stadium rendered in 3D and 4K, and it's going to be just like what it would look like in real life, which is ridiculous to me. And you can download and export that, which you can then use in other softwares to link up the music and the timing of when the shells are fired.
That's cool. So, like, does that software, when you're searching on Google Maps there, does it have certain areas where, like, it's registered with each city that, hey, people can actually shoot fireworks off at this location? Or, like if I'm thinking, like, if I want to plan one in the middle of, like, a highway, not that people would do that, but, like, if I wanted to, is it going to let me do that? Or is it smart enough to say, like, hey, no, this is not, like, a sanctioned zone for fireworks?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually wasn't able to find that out. I was looking into that. But just the one example of the YouTube video I was watching, it looked like it was like a bridge in London or something that was going off.
Oh, that's cool.
Or it was a bridge somewhere. I'm not sure what their logic is in that software to check, like if you just put in direct coordinates of somewhere on a highway, like you had said, if you could do that, or if it has to be like you said, like a registered like monument or building or physical location.
Right.
I actually don't know the answer to that question. But that's a very good question. There's also another software I looked into that was called Galaxis or Galaxis. I'm not sure. It's probably Galaxis. But this is a software as well that is used to control the sequence of firing each and every individual shell for the fireworks show according to the sequence that was created in the Finale 3D software. So the two softwares here like work really well with one another. You export software that you created in a Finale, the fully functional show that you made in Finale, and you plug it into this the Galaxy software, and you can program when every shell is set off. And this is really useful because, like I said, you can program it to music. So if you have music in the background of your show and you want a shell to go off at like the 10-second mark, where when a certain note is hit, you can actually do that in this type of software. And it uses signals, and it sends a signal from the control to the tubes and the banks that are on the grid with the shells in them, and that's when they go off.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's weird that you say that because I think I had mentioned this before, but I had when I went to I was in Orlando for a wedding in February, and we had went to like Disney World and all that jazz, and we had taken this tour of Magic Kingdom, one of the amusement parks there, and they kind of briefly explained to us, how the fireworks show at the end of the night works. And one of the things they said is one of the hardest things to do is actually sync up the firing of the fireworks shell and the music or the sound. And they actually use software to do that, obviously. They didn't mention if they used any of these ones or what, so I'm not sure on that. But one of the really cool things that they mentioned is the tour guide that we had, she had mentioned that where the guests are viewing the show, the fireworks are actually shot off about up to a mile away from where the viewers are. And so one of the hardest things to do is actually sync up the sound with that firework firing off, because light travels faster than sound. So you have this whole disconnect of, if my viewers are a mile away from where the shell is being fired off, how do I get it to time up, right, so that not only it's synced up with the fireworks, but also the listener doesn't have a lag in their viewing of this fireworks show because of the whole physics issue of light traveling faster than sound. I thought that was really cool. I mean, she didn't go into too much detail other than that about that, but that's something that I never thought of, and how software is kind of solving that problem with these fireworks shows.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. It's really unbelievable how far the software has come.
Oh yeah.
From where fireworks shows were, their humble beginnings. Like I had mentioned, someone had to use a torch, light it, and then duck under, the board or the table that it was at. And, that obviously it's extremely dangerous. So the introduction of software into the field of, pyrotechnics is just breathtaking if you just take a second to sit back and appreciate it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's come so far. In some of our research, we found that some of the earliest examples of, this firework creation software goes back into the 1980s, on the first, Commodore 64 8-bit computer.
Jeez.
It's just I've never obviously used one of those, but I think they have one I think they might have one of them in the Carnegie Museum. I think.
Oh, really?
I think that they might have a little display, or it's either that or it might have been in the Andy Warhol Museum.
Okay.
Because I think he used, if it wasn't the Commodore 64, it was some sort of 8-bit computer to create some designs himself. And it is essentially just like a keyboard. And then you just have to have some sort of monitor. But I think the computer itself was just what we consider today to be a keyboard.
Right. So no mouse, no so you would completely interact with the user interface.
I think so, yeah. But this Commodore 64 8-bit computer, was used in the 80s to create what we would consider now as video games. It was some of the earliest examples of that. But they were called construction kits. So you would do things in the 80s with them. Activision, a very well-known gaming company, creates Call of Duty and all sorts of games now that kids play. Released a construction kit for the Commodore 64 called the Complete Computer Fireworks Celebration Kit in 85, which allowed users to create fireworks-themed sequences and had on-screen explosions. So obviously it's not 2020 software where you're having music and fully functional fireworks shows, but it was actually a little bit of a little video game in which you would just create shows just for fun. There was no practical use to it. It was just you were doing it just to see it be done.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. Because I think there was another game I used to play when I was younger. I think, what was it called? Roller Coaster Tycoon. And you could actually, you would build roller coasters and amusement parks, but you could design fireworks shows for the end of the night of your amusement park that you built. So yeah, it is kind of cool to think about how fireworks are popular, but they've, I guess, we've seen them in children's toys and software. So it is, like we've been mentioning, it's kind of weird that we, at least from my perspective, I think it's weird that I still view fireworks as this Stone Age type show. It's they're shooting off fireworks for the 4th of July. Oh, that's cool. But they've been around forever. You know, I'd rather go see like the new, the newest CGI movie come out or something like that. But I guess like in our research we've really found out that there is a lot of technology involved, and it's a lot more complicated than people think.
Yeah, Roller Coaster Tycoon effectively is like what these construction kits like were. It evolved from this
Right.
in the 80s. And it's, I think, one of the earliest documented examples of how some of these kits were used was in 1986. Fireworks by Grucci combined with IBM PC computers and used custom programs to manage the choreography of fireworks. So this was one of the earliest examples of how computers were used hand in hand to plan out specific pyrotechnic shows. So it wasn't like you create a fully functional fireworks show on these like 1980s computers, but they were used to sort of create like the choreography behind the shows. So like I can't speak to what the choreography was, if there was any at all back then, but this was one of the biggest changes to fireworks that had been seen in history. Was not the fact that it was just like you were creating something on the computer instead of real life. It was introducing choreography based planning into the fireworks shows themselves, which is also another light that people probably don't see. Is it's not just you're firing off shells. You have to plan the music. You have to plan, like you said, the distance at which they're fired, and there's a whole choreographic element behind it.
Oh yeah, I mean, like it's that is a really interesting point. But by the way, I'm just sorry when you said Gucci, like the clothing company.
No, it's Grucci.
Okay.
It's Gucci with an R.
Okay. I was like, man, I was like, wow. I was like, Gucci started as I thought for sure they were a clothing company. I was like, I had no idea, but okay, misheard that. But no, that's really cool though. Because yeah, you can kind of see through history like that transition of how like even how film or theater has started as black and white film to color to animation to CGI. There's a whole transition of how fireworks kind of evolved and are continuing to innovate going forward as new technology comes out. Yeah, I mean, as I've been reading these articles and kind of watching different YouTube videos on this topic, I've been blown away about how complicated these fireworks shows are. I had this I don't know, I had this idea in my head that they were just I always thought they were cool, but like I was never like blown away by them saying like, oh, it's just an exploding color fire thing going off in the air. I think it's really kind of made me appreciate more these fireworks shows because there is a lot of planning and technology involved in them, and it's something I never thought of.
Yeah, totally. And fireworks by Gucci would be, I guess, a good way to put it, the Gucci of firework companies. If you look them up, they're a huge player in the fireworks space, probably because of how early they got into the technology side of things back in the 80s. But they are a gigantic firework conglomerate almost, and they're Guinness World Record holders, and they're a huge deal for anybody in the pyrotechnic space. So if you want to give them a look a little bit, like I guess like I said with a poorly attempted joke, they are the Gucci probably of the firework game.
That's cool though.
Yeah,
I would definitely give them a look. But I mean they're still around today. What year did you say what year they were founded? And they were strictly founded for.
I didn't say. I didn't look at what they were founded or when they were founded. I was just saying, 1986 was when one of the earliest documented examples of using computer software to choreograph fireworks shows.
Gotcha.
And now fireworks shows have become a gigantic piece of not only Independence Day celebrations, but American history as well. And the 4th of July celebrations, you have your big fireworks, but then you also have the nightlife and I guess some of the partying beforehand. So the 4th of July is kind of like it's obviously a great celebration day for America, but it's also a huge party day for a lot of people. You know, it's a
Absolutely.
party weekend. If it occurs on a Friday, or even if it occurs during the week, it's a party day
People
for
are still
everybody.
partying. I mean, I know I would be partying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I mean, the 4th of July is really, it's a really large party day in America, and I think this kind of leads into our other point with, um, you know, party life and party culture, how it is so massively, I feel like, expanded um, in at least a recent history. Maybe over the last decade or so. I feel like the party culture in America has really kind of boomed and expanded.
oh yeah. I think even with like the invention of some of the social media platforms such as like Barstool, I'm Schmacked,
Yes, yeah,
some of the few other ones, it's kind of like it's really brought this party culture to life in America. And I don't know. I like a part of me thinks that it's a good thing. It's getting people to kind of enjoy life more, have a good time. But it can also have some negative effects where, um, it's encouraging some obsessive behaviors that aren't the best thing in the world. Um, but the thing that's interesting to me at least is that right there in the middle of all that is technology. Those social media platforms are technology. A lot of the bars and clubs that you go to have all kind of different jukeboxes and different technology intertwined. There's Uber, Lyft. That has that's heavily used technology in the party culture in America. Um, and I'm sure I'm missing other things and other technology, but the other thing that comes to mind too is like location-based services. I'm sure that there's at least like speaking from my personal experiences is like me and my buddies go out to a bar, and we can't find our buddy Joe. What do? We check his location on our iPhones and oh, he's just at the next bar over. We didn't lose him. And like I think like technology might give a negative rap to the party culture in America, but in some aspects of it, it's actually helped the party culture be more safe. Especially with like those location service apps and Uber and Lyft. I think Uber and Lyft have, you know, you can someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say Uber and Lyft has probably been one of the greatest things for this country in terms of drunk driving.
yeah. I mean, I can probably correct you because I think you might be a little off base in some. No, I mean, obviously, what you said, the last point you made, in terms of it improving, fatal accidents and drunk driving, I would 100% agree with that. But I think if we want to talk about Uber and Lyft specifically, I think it's a really interesting conversation as far as saying, in a binary sense, Uber and Lyft are a good thing or they're a bad thing, because you do have the one hand in which they reduce fatal car crashes and cut down on drunk driving, but there's also a very strong argument that, Uber and Lyft could encourage excessive or even binge drinking tendencies. Now, there's studies that have been done on both sides, as far as whether it's a good or a bad thing. I think it's worth noting that if someone has to drive themselves home, they're going to drink significantly less than they are if they're going to take an Uber home. So I think it's a very interesting conversation to have. Is Uber a good or a bad thing, or are you not able to make such a one-sided stand on them?
Right, right. And I think that's a tough discussion because, um, I think if you take it from, you know, my perspective as someone who actively goes out to clubs and bars, I agree with you. I definitely, if I know that I'm getting an Uber, I don't have to drive myself to some sort of event or bar where there's going to be alcoholic beverages. I definitely indulge more than I normally would. Um, but then on like the flip side of that, I guess like people are also making smarter decisions. I think that like as I'm not a parent, but I know that my parents appreciate the fact that if I'm going out, they prefer me to take an Uber. It makes them feel safe. So like I guess from like a parent's mind, it's a benefit. But I agree with you. It's kind of a tough discussion because you know you're kind of you're at this like standstill as, is it really benefiting society or is it actually hurting society? I don't know. That's a tough discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting that we have two people at the table here that kind of are on each side of the spectrum. You like to go out and party and drink with your friends, and I'm someone who might be labeled more of a stick in the mud. I don't drink alcohol or anything like that. So I think it's really beneficial that we both kind of have our own experiences in the sense. I think Uber is really cool and Lyft as well, or any ride sharing services in general. I don't want to just label two of them. I think ride sharing services in general have been excellent in terms of transportation, whether you're drinking alcohol or not. The taxi drivers in New York and large metropolitan areas might tell you differently. But as consumers of the application, I think it's really great being able to not have to hail a cab when you're trying to go somewhere. You can take an Uber.
Right.
And that is obviously why the applications and ride-sharing services themselves are so groundbreaking in the sense that they, hit market with something that was not being used outside of like taxi cabs,
Right.
or like grand transportation like buses or subways. But I think if you look at the numbers in terms of how they've affected drunk driving, obviously they're going to tell you exactly what we're saying. Research for Uber specifically, their ride-hailing service was associated with a 10% decrease in overall fatal crashes involving alcohol and 10% decrease in drunk driving arrests in Seattle specifically, according to an analysis by Uber and the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and a 25 to 35% decrease in booze-related crashes in 4 of the New York City boroughs. So those are specific studies that were done to Uber. They did their own research in that sense. So like the one side of the argument is they're awesome to prevent or help mitigate drunk driving accidents, and the data speaks for itself. But then you also have to look at the alternative. I would argue that they certainly lead to increased drinking, and there's also plenty of studies that would suggest that that is an accurate assessment as well.
I agree with you. I mean, I think like I mentioned a couple minutes ago. I mean, I know that if I'm taking an Uber, and I'm going out to an event or a place that's going to have alcoholic beverages, I will have definitely more than the normal amount of alcoholic beverages, just because I know that I'm safe getting home.
Yeah, I know. I'm not singling you out or anything.
No,
I'm just saying that.
But that's
a very general sense of what you're saying.
Right, exactly. I think it's just weird because I think that that it's like a, what's it called, like a chicken and egg type deal, where like you don't know which one is better. Obviously, we're not condoning drinking a ton of alcohol.
Certainly not. Definitely not.
But it's just it's weird because even now with like the whole COVID thing going on, when we went into the green phase, a couple of friends and I, we tried to go out the one night to a restaurant bar, and we could not find an Uber or a Lyft. It was literally impossible. No one wanted to pick us up. There just weren't drivers around, and I think it has a lot to do with people just don't currently feel safe driving strangers around in their car with this whole pandemic going on. But when that happened, what I really thought of was, I remember when we were seniors in college, Uber had that whole self-driving car initiative going around in Oakland there, where they just had cars driving around. I was like, this is like the perfect scenario. People don't want to drive strangers in their car, but this is exactly what we need here is these self-driving cars. And it's kind of really interesting to me how these rideshare companies are the ones kind of leading the pack in this self-driving car technology. Because that's like, I think that's gonna be the next big and upcoming thing. Is these self-driving cars. I know Tesla has a model that has autopilot or drives itself to some capacity. But that's to me, I think, a really interesting topic as well.
Yeah, I mean, like when realistically would you even suspect that self-driving vehicles are going to be like strongly recommended for people to use, like safely implemented into society? Like I feel like we've been hearing about it for like 10 years.
Right.
And it's still not to that point.
And I think a lot of that is just like people being at a level where they feel comfortable behind, in that car with no one behind the wheel. I think like
I don't know if I would even get in a self-driving car like just to drive to work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if I would either.
Like cars have self-park on them now. Like the newer cars do use their cameras and motion sensing technology to self-parallel park. Like I don't know if I personally would trust that as well. I would definitely test it, not around vehicles, but like with cones or something,
right,
and a curb. But like if I'm in a highly densely populated area in like the middle of Pittsburgh, or have like New York City.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why you'd be driving a car in New York City anyway, but like if you had to parallel park, like am I going to turn on my self parking to do that? Like I don't know if I would do that. Would you feel comfortable?
No, and like in a highly dense, like in a highly populated or dense area, probably not. And because the reason why is this, and I went to this one talk when I was in school, and it was about this, automated driving and like different technologies, kind of how the car uses different technologies to basically, drive itself. And if you ever seen one of those self-driving cars, they have that big, circular sphere thing that kind of goes around in a circle. It looks like a Doppler radar where it just kind of goes around in a circle, but it's kind of mapping out the area around the cars that you're driving by. And, it's programmed to detect obstacles that are, not normal. And if there's an obstacle in front of it that's not normal, it stops, slows down, or, does what it needs to do to, prevent a collision. But one of the interesting things that I heard at that talk was that one of the things that these cars don't do well is they're very good at determining, like, okay, there's an obstacle in front of me that isn't normal. I don't know what it is. But what they can't differentiate is this is a pothole or this is a puddle of water. So you have this scenario where it's, it doesn't know what that is. So it's either got to do one of two things: either continue to drive, stop. If it continues to drive, and it doesn't know if it's a pothole or a puddle of water, you can have two very different scenarios. A pothole, okay, a little bit of a bump, you're kind of safe to still go forward. With a puddle of water, a standing puddle of water, that car could hydroplane. So by default, what the programmer does is they decide, okay, I know there's an obstacle in front of me that's not normal, but I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to tell the car to stop, and then you make the user physically drive that car, decide what it wants to do. So like that hump, I don't see a world where like you can somehow categorize to a computer in a database like the object that you see is a pothole, or this is a puddle. Like, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting a little off a tangent, but this is too interesting of a topic to not discuss. I mean, this is getting to the point which I think a lot of people have looked into is like it's like a sociological impact to automation and in self-driving vehicles especially. So there's a social experiment that is very well known, with very, very credible experts behind it. It's like if there is person A is the obstacle that you just mentioned in the road, or person B, and you're a self-driving car, and you like have to hit one of those people. Like it's a social experiment that you could look up online. Whereas like this person has these characteristics and this person has these characteristics. If the computer has to decide for itself what decision is going to be made, that's probably the biggest hump that you're talking about. Is like,
right.
If you introduce these technologies and give the artificial intelligence the ability to decide on its own, what decision is it going to make? how's that going to impact the world of self-driving vehicles or artificial intelligence in general? It's crazy to think that a computer can decide those things, but they can, and they're going to. We're going to get to that point. Just when are we going to get to that point? And like, I guess we're going off tangent, but like, that is such an interesting topic to me because, there's games about that stuff now. Like, I play a game that's called Trial by Trolley, and it's made by Cyanide and Happiness. You know Cyanide and Happiness? They make YouTube videos and stuff. It's basically a game version of that social experiment. You are forced to make decisions based on certain criteria. So the computer is going to be forced to make these decisions based on certain criteria. It's just like, I can't wrap my head around when we get to that point. I don't even know if we should get to that point.
I agree with you. That makes me nervous because this stuff reminds me of like sci-fi horror films where like, or I'm thinking like,
like Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Like the Black Mirror one of the, I can't remember what it is, but it was the AI robots that would work at like construction sites and they had the 4 legs.
Yes.
Did you ever watch that one? And he was like, you know the name of that episode? I can't remember. But he was just like running around and it became self-conscious and just like horror TV shows and stuff that you'd see about that stuff. Right.
And the other thing that comes to mind too is like I had just watched recently Marvel's Avengers like Age of Ultron. And Ultron, like the idea of Ultron was that he was programmed to, be this saving force in the world, and like his decision that he made ultimately with his, his AI brain was, we have to kill the human race. Like that's how he saved the human race. So we just kill the human race. So like we are getting a little bit off topic here, but it is such an interesting topic because we could go on for days.
Well, if you want to wrap it back around to like party culture, like, can you imagine? Let's just say in 5 years, Uber or Tesla or any of these companies, let's say that they've perfected self-driving vehicles.
Right.
So Uber and Lyft and ride-sharing services specifically now have self-driving vehicles. I'd assume that a consumer using the application would have the option to choose between a driver, a real human driver, or an automated vehicle. I can't wrap my head around the fact that Uber would just send you a self-driving car without asking you.
Right.
Because you'd probably need consent to enter that vehicle. So let's just say that there was a group of people who were having a good time. They're out at a bar. So you and your friends are out at a bar. And you guys have been throwing some drinks back, had a bunch of, drinks. You're ready to go home. You use Uber, and some of your friends are like, yeah, dude, let's just take a self-driving vehicle. It's going to be sick. Let's just do it. Can you imagine being blackout drunk and getting into a car with no driver behind it? People are going to freak out. People are going to lose their mind. They're going to lose their mind. You'd freak out.
I would freak out. I would 100% freak out.
You're going to forget forget that you scheduled an Uber that's self-driving. You're going to get into it, and you're going to lose your mind.
Right.
Like, what kind of liability is behind that on Uber's end?
And that's the whole thing, too. Is like
what do you freak out and you like start grabbing the wheel? You're like, stop this vehicle. Stop the car. Stop the car. It's like... You're gonna,
it's like those student driver cars. They have like this the brakes on the right side of the car, so they can stop the car if the student's like going off the road or something like that.
There's just so many questions involved with that.
Right, and plus like isn't there also like the other thing that's like, this is an interesting topic too, because isn't there like a law that like even let's say that I'm not driving the car, but I'm intoxicated, and I get into the passenger seat of the car and turn on the AC in the summer to basically sit in my car and fall asleep. Like, can I technically get a DUI for that? I think.
Yeah, I don't know if that's is that government wide or maybe it's just on the state level. I'm not really sure.
I'm not 100% sure.
It definitely, yeah. Neither of us have that up in front of us right now, but it sounds familiar. Absolutely.
Right. So like, if that's the case, let's just assume that is the case. Then we're in a self-driving car. Am I still liable then for a DUI, even though I'm not driving that car?
Am I the driver?
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like,
am I operating the vehicle even though there's nobody operating the vehicle?
Right. And let's say Tesla, perfects their autopilot. So I'm out at the bar. Why do I call an Uber? I'm saving myself money.
Drive yourself.
I'm just gonna drive myself in my Tesla.
Drive you home.
Yeah. it's gonna drive me home. Like, but like I think like the laws would have to change because like I don't know, it's just such an interesting topic too. And then I think of like the companies on the other hand too is like, do they even want that liability on their hands to begin with? Because like the minute some like a life is lost because of one of those automated cars, I mean they're screwed. I mean the society will lose trust in that, and not to mention the lawsuit that's involved with that. But I don't know if I would even want to take on that liability as the company.
Yeah, I mean, that's also a really good question. Like Uber and Lyft and other services have decreased the rate at which people are getting into a car drunk and operating that car.
Right.
The studies have been done, the research is there. There's over 10,000 deaths a year from drunk driving related incidences, whether it's somebody in the car who was drunk or somebody operating a car that killed somebody else. There's over 10,000 deaths like that per year. And that's obviously a huge problem across the country, and that's why these ride-sharing services are trying to cut back on and really cut deep into those numbers. But then if we look at the numbers, going back to what I was talking about earlier with, is there a likelihood for people to drink more? There was a study published by doctors and economics professors from the University of Louisville and Georgia State that, if I find it here, they said that using their self-reported measures of alcohol consumption, the studies that Uber itself has done, they could be associated with a 3.1% increase in the average number of drinks consumed per day, 2.8% increase number of drinking days per month, and 4.9% increase in the maximum number of drinks consumed on one occasion. Wow. And also a 9% increase in the prevalence of heavy drinking, which would be like binge drinking, which I talked about before. If there's self-driving vehicles and we have these numbers that say, there's a 5% chance that, or a 10% chance that somebody's going to heavily drink, one night, like the liability just skyrockets for those companies. So like, it's an interesting question, why would they want that? Obviously they want to be the first company to market that has self-driving cars. But like you said, the second that a life is lost, it kind of makes you step back. Hindsight's 2020, why do we do this?
Right.
So it's like the party culture in America and the technology specifically behind it, there's just infinite questions and possibilities behind it.
Absolutely.
So like, is Uber good or bad? Are self-driving vehicles good or bad?
Right.
Should I get into a car drunk in general?
Right.
In general, even with your friends fully sober, like, should I do it? All of that stuff in terms of the party culture in America, it's just such a widely debated topic. It's such a topic that's probably never going to go away. Laws and regulations aren't going to be able to limit everything that people are going to be doing.
Right.
Laws and regulations might need to be created for these self-driving vehicles. Alcohol consumption to get into one, or anything like that. Like,
right. And to that point too, let's just say that we do perfect these automated cars, these self-driving cars, and let's just say that now the binge drinking rate in America goes up by 40%. I'm just making up numbers here. But then like the minute that that stat comes out public on the news that these self-driving car companies are responsible for this increase of binge drinking, now we have a new problem on our hands. Now you've essentially created a country that has a drinking problem now. You no longer have a DUI problem, we got a drinking problem now. We might already have that now.
We're already there. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But it's like, as a supporter of tech, I want to say that technology is making the world a better and safer place. But when you actually sit back and discuss these things and talk about these things, I truly don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, and the professionals who are developing this software probably don't have the answers either.
No.
But like I said, it's such a competition to get to market. You're going to be changing the landscape of technology for the future.
Right.
If you can develop self-driving technology that is safe and regulated and is reliable, that's changing the architecture of technology for the rest of time, which is obviously you put your name behind that. You're like, hey, I did it. I'm the person that invented that. I'm the person that invented time travel. You want to be the first person to invent time travel? Like it could turn out to be the worst thing ever for humankind that someone invented time travel.
Right.
That's a different topic. Not going to get into that. But it's the whole point is, you want to be the first person to do something. It's just I think you need to make sure that you, especially for self-driving vehicles, like I think people need to make sure that they're doing their due diligence in investigating. Should this be done? Should this be delivered to the public?
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's a tough decision to make too, because like let's just take this example where the developer behind this technology full-heartedly believes that he or she is doing the right thing. And, let's just say they launch this new technology and this technology actually benefits the world for a period of time. But then shit kind of hits the fan and this technology kind of backfires on society. Like, is that developer, is that company that designed that software, are they evil people? That wasn't their intention. Are our intentions to do good purely good enough, or do we have to be, aware of the possible liabilities and errors that can go wrong in software and make sure that we as developers, correct that. We're gonna have to have another podcast episode strictly on like this topic here, because I think I can go on for like another hour about this.
Well, yeah, like self-driving cars and artificial intelligence and everything. Yeah. Well, like we've said a million times, like already, it's such plus to beat a dead horse. This type of stuff you can talk forever on. It's boundless.
Right. Absolutely.
And we got a little off tangent, but it does intertwine with the party life and the technology behind it, specifically in America. And it correlates also with the 4th of July, with being such a large party holiday for people. It's relevant,
Right.
So I'm not upset that we went down that road and talked for a very long time on it. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to have our guest hosts on. We're going to have Justin and Mike on, and they're going to chat with us. I'm real quick, I'm going to let you tell our listeners how they could support the podcast.
Yeah, so, we have gotten a lot of good feedback from our trailer and our episode 0. And so we are really thankful for the positive feedback and everyone that's been supporting this show and, our company in general. But if you guys are really liking this show, we would really, really appreciate you guys supporting us by, possibly donating to help to our show to help us, produce more episodes and, make this a better overall experience for you guys in general. And to do that, you can simply go to www.adsapllc.com/byte-club-podcast. And Byte Club is spelled how it is on our show, BYTE. Any donation would help make this just a better experience for everyone in general. So thanks, guys. We really appreciate all your support so far.
Welcome back to Byte Club. We just took a quick break after our very lengthy conversation about technology behind the 4th of July and party culture. We are now joined by our special guests, Justin and Mike. Thanks for taking the time to be on the show, guys, and happy belated 4th of July to the both of you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
You as well. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, so basically before the break, we chatted about the 4th of July in general, specifically the technology that was behind like pyrotechnic shows, giant fireworks shows, and also about the party culture in America. So specifically like Uber and Lyft and ride sharing services. And then Antonino kind of got us on a little bit of a tangent as far as self-driving cars and stuff was concerned. So we actually talked a little about some AI stuff, but basically just want to chat with you guys about the 4th of July, how your celebrations went and some of the party culture stuff in America today. So first off, how was your holiday yesterday for the both of you?
Yeah, mine was actually kind of low key. I hung out at home. My girlfriend came up, visited me for the weekend. We headed over to just a friend's house. who I've been hanging out with recently over as restrictions have been lifted. And we just kind of hung out, drank there a little bit, super low key, didn't do any fireworks, none of that. Just kind of said hey to everybody, and that was about it for me.
Yeah, I had a different approach. I was actually on the drive-on beach down in Lewis in Delaware. It was a great time. A little bit removed from the technology, and it was just the car and about our own like 100-yard stretch of beach. So it was really peaceful, really fun. Close family, and close friends. But it was a good time. Had some music going, and just good vibes all around.
Yeah, it's cool stuff, guys. 4th of July is literally one of my favorite holidays. I enjoy like the party culture, the getting together with friends and family, having some hot dogs, some beer, watching some fireworks. But I just kind of wanted to get right into this discussion here and kind of just pick your guys' brain about some of the topics Colin and I were just discussing in the first part of the show. And one of the things that we started talking about that really kind of spiked our interest was this whole party culture with Uber and Lyft. And I kind of we had this discussion where I brought up the fact that like I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that if I'm intoxicated and I get into the passenger seat of my car, turn on the car, and like put the AC on and just fall asleep, that I technically can still get a DUI for that. And so that brought us into the discussion like, well, if I get into a self-driving Uber and no one's driving that Uber, or if I get into a my own Tesla that has autopilot, and I'm drunk, and I get in the passenger seat and turn out autopilot on and take me home, am I still liable for like a DUI? Like, are we gonna expand the laws to change that if this technology takes off? And we just kind of want to get your guys' take on that. What do you guys think about that?
Oh man, I sure hope not. I sure hope not. If that's in my future, then everybody's in trouble, right? Um, that I think that's one of the main points of having this self-driving future. You allow the people who would usually be in the taxi service and the Uber service and the Lyft service, you allow those people to enjoy their vacations, and I think that's it's a huge part of how AI is kind of taking over employment in general and will continue to. Um, but in terms of the party culture, man, I sure hope, I sure hope if I'm intoxicated in my own, AI driving me home, I hope that doesn't, there's no repercussions from that. I'm not sure how Justin feels about that, but yeah, that I look forward to that in the future, being able to just, know that we're safe, just by, having my own vehicle or an app. And I think that's, definitely important.
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. One, like in terms of who's liable, like if something were to happen or if you were to get pulled over and get a DUI, if you're in a passenger seat of a self-driving car, it's kind of like that's kind of the gray area when it comes to self-driving cars. I think it's one of the few. But in terms of self-driving cars as a whole, um, weirdly enough, I wrote a research paper a couple years ago about self-driving car technology and like the whole vehicle to vehicle communication and all that stuff. I won't bore you on that part, but just from reading up on what it is and what it does, it's kind of one of those big technological shifts in terms of changing like how people operate in daily life. Like the most recent one that probably we remember in our lives is cell phones. It was one of those things where like texting and doing stuff on your phone seemed like kind of weird, and people said, nah, like I have my computer at home, like there's no need for this, I can just call people. But as soon as people started getting them and everybody across the world had one, it makes it so much easier to use it and communicate with others. And I think that's like kind of the thing that we're going to be looking for with self-driving cars, where sure, some people are going to start using them, but it's never going to be fully functional and well, like as safe as it potentially could be until everybody does it. Once everybody's driving self-driving cars, then sure, like they can communicate with each other, they can share data of what's going on around them, and it can ultimately like reduce traffic and eliminate human error, which in the at the end of the day will kind of, in my opinion, get very close to eliminating any accidents and issues that could potentially occur if you were, say, intoxicated in the passenger seat of a car and something like were to happen with that car. with no external like human error, and every car around you being able to communicate with each other, you'll be able to see when something's up and kind of prevent all those issues altogether. So it's like kind of a tough situation right now because how people perceive it, and it's just such like a big shift in the way that we move that I don't know. It's kind of a gray area right now, in my opinion.
Right. And I don't think it's only a shift in the way that we move, but also if you think about the economic shift, right? If there's completely self-driving, vehicles, people will no longer have that hesitation. How am I getting that safe ride tonight? And how will that adjust, overall I guess the max of a bar or the population of a bar, the spend on, for example, holidays like this weekend, 4th of July. I think that, overall it's probably going to be a slow shift, but as culture, shifts to entirely autonomous vehicles, that should have, I think, massive, um, you know, economic results in general, and a big shift not only in the way that we move, but the way we spend as well.
Right. Yeah. Those are some great points, guys. And that's exactly like how Colin and I kind of got off on this tangent because, like, it could go one of two ways. It could truly benefit society, or it could take a deep spiral down the wrong path. And, we
Right.
kind of talked about like the idea that, okay, let's just assume that we get to this perfect state with this technology where it works really well. And, people are going out to the bars and it's saving people's lives. People aren't getting DUIs. They're getting home safely. But then we develop as a country a drinking problem. Did the technology really help, or did it just create a new problem in and of itself? So, it's just some really interesting stuff to talk about.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough situation. I mean, I guess naturally as people we're kind of very indulgent in things like that and very,
Well,
following of
America
trends.
America
Yeah.
already has a binge drinking culture when compared to the rest of the world, right? So if you look globally, it's different.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's different globally. The just the overall, I guess the difference that this, autonomous vehicles and everything will make is definitely different globally than if you're looking, just on a national scale. Um, but in terms of alcoholism and those issues, party culture, sure, it'll increase globally. And in the United States specifically, I think people will just be happy to have that outlet, that ability to choose, how they're getting home safely and know that that's not a risk. But in terms of increasing consumption, I'm not sure that that's an issue here, just because it already is an issue, but
Right,
globally,
right.
globally, I'm sure that we'll see some repercussions there, in other countries in terms of increased issues. Because you're not always in a vehicle. If people are overindulging because they know they can get home safe, what else? What other stupid shit are they gonna do? For lack of better words, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it comes down to like how we're raised as a society. Like, I mean, it's something like this. It's meant to help people, obviously, but then just kind of how America is as a culture, it's just going to be abused, and that's just kind of an unfortunate truth about the whole thing. While it's going to help, it's still going to be probably used like for not its intended purpose.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we kind of got down this tangent, and then this self-driving vehicle discussion is such a black box that we kind of don't really know, what the future is going to hold. But your discussions are very similarly aligned with what we were saying before. That kind of leads into what the question that I was going to ask two of you guys was, is in your opinion, do you believe that like Uber, Lyft, and like ride sharing services have overall been a good thing for the U.S. society or a bad thing, or do you think that it can't necessarily be painted as such like a one-sided thing? Because there's what we discussed earlier was there are studies to show that it has decreased in drunk driving collisions and deaths, but it's also increased in the average alcohol consumption. So I guess what are your opinions on Uber, Lyft, and ride sharing services in terms of their overall impact?
Yeah, well, I think a cool alternative that I've heard about, is just, I know Elon Musk talked about this, but in the future, when everybody has a self-driving car, people who might have to stay home with their baby for a night, right? are they going to be able to lend their car to someone else who might need it? I think that'll definitely have an impact on the situation. But in terms of Uber and Lyft, I think it's overall a good thing. I definitely think it's steering technology in the right way, in terms of that, in terms of ride sharing. And if ride sharing is done correctly, I don't think it necessarily has to have an increase on, I guess, alcohol consumption overall. And I don't think it has to have a negative impact on party culture. I think it has the potential to have a really positive impact. It's just, capitalism and, and which way it takes it.
Yeah, I get. I mean, yeah. So in terms of just like Uber and Lyft as companies, I think they kind of provide, like a really cool opportunity for a side hustle for anybody with a car. And there's some people who don't have a place to live and literally live in their car. And I've read stories of people who live in their car and they figure out, they can drive Uber or Lyft, and that's kind of how they make a living. So in terms of that, it's really helping people get some sort of a job and generate some sort of income for themselves. But at the same time, you can link anything to anything if you do enough research. So sure, people could relate Lyft to an increase in drinking, but you could also relate, like the increase in social media use and seeing everybody else participating in this stuff and having that lead to people want to drink more and also do those things. So in terms of, is that directly correlated to the increase in like binge drinking and people just relying on this as the ride home? Sure, like that could be a reason, yeah. But is it directly related? In most cases, maybe, maybe not. You never know. But I think it's a cool thing for the economy. It kind of offers a unique position for people to make some money without literally needing any other qualification other than a driver's license. Um, but yeah, again, like circling back to my other point, just us as a society, we're inclined to abuse it, and that's just kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought up the economic aspect because um, that was in one of the studies that I talked about before. There, in this study, it was found that there was a 2.4% increase in employment, and a 2.3% increase in overall earnings at drinkable establishments. So there's definitely pros and cons, ups and downs to Uber and Lyft and ride sharing services and like an like overall aspect. So it's a really interesting discussion to get different people's opinions because you know different people based on the way that they carry themselves and the way that they interact socially with other people will have differing opinions on topics like these. So
Right. Well, Colin, I have a quick follow-up question. So let me think about how to phrase this. So do you think once everything is fully autonomous, do you think the unemployment, I know overall spend will increase, right? Because people will be more likely to go out and buy things and drink in terms of party culture. But do you think unemployment overall will go down because of the lack of Uber and Lyft and taxis? And I wonder what kind of, just thought provoking. I'm no economic expert. I have a minor undergrad, but how would that impact in terms of unemployment? Would that then circle around? They have less money to spend because they have to take another job or something, and then are they less likely to go out? It's interesting how it's full circle in
well, I
that
feel
way.
like inherently, anytime that automation is sort of taking human jobs out of the picture, I feel like that's probably, unfortunately, it's an unfortunate thing, but that's probably what's going to happen. Like in my opinion, if you look at the ways that like machinery and automation occurs in like factories, like like food processing factories and anything like that, like that all used to be man-made, and now it's all machines, and less people are being employed in factories. Like, so again, I'm not looking at the numbers, but machinery is taking away from human jobs in like several aspects of the economy already. So, as somebody who is not well versed in economics, my personal opinion would be that, unfortunately, I believe that probably there would be less jobs just in the transportation aspect of things.
Right, but then you have the uptick of the comp sci, the computer science and the coding and the automation in general. Obviously, that's a completely different industry, but that'll have the way it's accelerating already and the way it'll continue to accelerate. I'm sure the job openings will kind of balance it out on that side, um, in that way, I guess. And that's why, you guys are all, I guess Justin's a computer engineer. You guys are computer science, right?
Yep.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
Right. So you guys got it right. You guys went the right route with that.
Right. But
I
that
hope
is
to
an
think that
interesting
way.
topic, though, Mike, because like, I have this kind of, you know, opinion that I feel that the programmer is going to eventually become the blue collar worker. You see a lot of companies like Google and Microsoft, basically not requiring a college degree in computer science to be a programmer there. Just strictly based off of a skill set that you've acquired learning through through reading or through YouTube or something like that. Um, and that's what I think we're kind of going towards. Like the everyday blue collar factory worker is essentially now um, the the programmer in this so-called future going forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. With anywhere that you can kind of claim a decrease in employment in one industry, it'll be picked up in another. It's just kind
Yeah,
of like a shift in company needs, and people will naturally adapt to that because people need money to live.
definitely. And technology overall is applied to every single industry. You look across the board, and it's working its way into everything. Um, the first thing that popped in my mind is, in comparison, I'm a bioengineer. You guys are all computer guys, and I'm thinking, maybe the medical field is exempt. Absolutely not, right? Absolutely not. You look at every single surgical instrument and every single, just computer system and filing system in a hospital. Everything's, relies on coding. So I'm completely on board with you guys on that. I definitely think that, the next generation of blue collar workers, or maybe a few generations from now, will probably be those coders. And it's crazy how we've lived through the internet revolution, and we're kind of seeing this technological revolution. I think this will be taught in textbooks years from now, how this is a huge change and a huge shift in society. And yeah, just completely outside of party culture alone, it's going to have massive impacts for generations to come.
Absolutely. And we really appreciate your guys' feedback on that. And it's just really cool to see other people's varying opinions on this topic. We could go on for hours, but I just really want to get into basically the reason why we brought you guys onto the show, and that's basically because to talk about your app Liver Cardio. So we're just gonna let you guys talk about that a bit, and we're just kind of curious about if you guys could tell us a bit about how you guys came up with the name, the app idea, the game idea, just how this idea came to be and how it got started.
Sure. So, I mean, I came up with the name. I'm not sure how I came up with the name. Justin came up with the app idea overall. So maybe Justin can take it off with a solid explanation.
Yeah, I guess I could. So I mean, as long as if I want to go back to square one, Mike and I have always kind of thrown ideas back and forth, like as long as we've known each other, because we've always wanted to kind of create a product, create a company, do something that was kind of outside of the norm of just graduating and getting a job. So we would always throw ideas back and forth between one another and kind of bash each other if there's bad ideas, and even if there's good ideas, try and tear them down and build them back up. We took classes, we've given presentations, we've written papers, the whole 9 yards, and all the time and work. And here we are. Our very first idea is an app called Liver Cardio. And that ends up being kind of the first thing that we bring to, reality in terms of product or an app. So, I don't know. I've always been into like the app space, and I've tried to teach myself Swift, and I've tried to dive into that kind of stuff in terms of computer science and coding. Um, so yeah, we've kind of always had these ideas, and then I kind of saw these apps and all these fun little games that people created, and none of them involved doing kind of fun things with friends in specific locations, kind of based upon where you are at any given time of day. So we kind of use this app to create that as a platform to use this and play a game in specific locations and kind of step outside your comfort zone with your friends and do dumb
Use your
stuff while
environment.
while you're doing the thing that you essentially would already be doing while you're there, and that's drinking. So we thought, hey, you know, like all these games that people will play, whether it's an app or they break out a box of cards or they just have something in their head. None of them are really location based, and none of them are really capable of being played everywhere. So we tried to grab all aspects of that and just kind of throw it all into one app that you can just fire up on your phone. And then, you know, if you're bored on the beach, which it's kind of almost an oxymoron because it's the beach and I love the beach, but if you're bored in any other location, whether it's the beach or just in your house or, you know, at a tailgate or whatever categories we create in the future, it's just kind of a cool thing that you can whip out and play with your friends like in the blink of an eye, kind of. So that's kind of what we were aiming for, just using the whole technological aspect to make something that's super easy, and then also create something that's unique in terms of what already exists.
Right, and where you are. Yeah. I mean, the first three categories that we have are just, normal pregame, which, people usually have cards and stuff, but it's a fun, using technology to create a little bit of a twist. And then we also have the beach and we have a restaurant. If you're out, you're waiting, for your drink orders to come through or whatever. You have something there to kind of, take time off the clock and enjoy yourselves. And I can't stress enough the location based is really what we were going for with this idea. That's what truly makes it unique.
It's a cool way to, you know, get to know the people more, regardless of how well you know them, whoever you're with, wherever you are, and to also, you know, just kind of do some embarrassing things to, you know, enjoy yourself.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart for sure. Definitely have some ridiculous cards in there, some fun prompts, and if anybody listening, decides to play, we definitely hope that they have a great time, just doing ridiculous stuff with their friends, wherever they are.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea. It's going to be a really fun application for people to play. It's going to be available on the App Store, hopefully relatively soon. Um,
As soon as we
yes,
stop being rejected by the
yeah,
Apple
it'll be
review
up there
team,
soon.
yes.
We had some safety/harm issues on that end. But, there's dozens of other drinking games that aren't location based. They're just very, I think, at least in our eyes, where we might be, a little bit, prejudiced, but, um, uh, they're not location based, but they made their way on the App Store, and they're very clear about the way that they consume alcohol and the party culture. I mean, I believe I hate to name plug here, but I believe there's an app called iPuke. So I don't think that liver cardio is exactly a step down from that. But we got rejected, but we sent an appeal. We heard a response back, and we have a call with the Apple team this upcoming week. So hopefully we'll be on there soon. Looking for a July release, definitely.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome, guys. It's unfortunate that we were targeting for this weekend to get it out there because obviously it has tremendous value in the current time that we're living in, especially this past weekend with the 4th of July being such a big party weekend. Um, but in and of itself, it's a fantastic idea for an app. I know that uh, Antonino and myself will definitely be using it because we've done tons of testing on it already. It's definitely, I think it'll definitely be a hit out there. So I think you guys definitely have a good idea on your hands. In terms of Justin, when you were talking about kind of just how you and Mike, have been with your relationship, it sounds very similar to the way that Antonino and I have been. Sort of have that entrepreneurial
Hmm.
spirit, so it's really cool to hear that you guys have had sort of a similar path that we have. Ever since we met in college, we were like, hey, let's do something together. So it's kind of where we're at now. Um, yeah, and that's really cool. It's really cool to see that a social interaction application is being built, especially in the time. I think it's definitely something that people need. Now with the coronavirus, everybody's kind of being forced to be separated from one another. But as long as group gatherings, while small, can still get together, I think as long as everyone's being safe and responsible, it'll definitely be a hit in the market when it goes to market. I do have a question though. Um, Obviously, this is an application, like I said, that people will love in the COVID times. It'll bring them together. It'll bring them closer together, and they'll kind of be able to have fun while putting their mind on pause a little with everything that's going on in the world. But do you personally, and you might not, but do you feel any implications or hesitations with the app going to market now in the time that we're in with like the severity of COVID regulations? Do you guys think about that at all?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of like a tough time period to be releasing something like this. Um, we've taken that into consideration, but at the end of the day, it's ultimately up to whoever uses it. I know there are small friend groups that are being safe and quarantining, whether they're working from home or wearing masks, social distancing, doing the whole 9 yards there. And then maybe getting together once a month, once a weekend, whatever that frequency may be, whatever they're comfortable with. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's ultimately up to them. And again, this app doesn't really promote anybody doing anything that's not safe in terms of that whole aspect of life right now.
Right.
And if there are cards or things in there that obviously don't promote that, it's meant for a perfect world, and we're not in a perfect world right now.
Yeah, cards are
So
optional.
yeah, it's up to the users at the end of the day. It's a shame that it just timed up this way, but safety over playing our app. If obviously I had to pick one at the end of the day, so up to them. Stay safe. All
And
that.
we've been kind of mulling this over in our minds for over 6 months since I guess the fall. So
Yeah,
we
that was
didn't
another
really
thing.
anticipate
Yeah,
this exactly.
it
So it
was
is
it
what it
was
is. But we contemplated a quarantine category for maybe couples at home or whatever. But we just figured we better stay in spirit of the app. Depending on how long this goes, we might release a quarantine category at some point. But for right now, we're just looking for people to trust themselves. And kind of have as much fun as they possibly can with the app. It's not ideal, but we're making the best of the situation.
I think it's definitely a very good points that you guys brought up. Yeah, at the end of the day, it really comes down to making sure that uh, you yourself are staying safe and following regulations and guidelines provided, by your government or the CDC. So at the end of the day, you
Right.
guys are just releasing an application that you guys thought of yourselves. You want to bring to market, and the time is just unfortunate. But I mean, it's not something that you guys can control. When I asked the question, it wasn't targeting you guys at all. It was just kind of a thought provoking question, and
yeah,
I thought that you guys kind of had similar responses to what I would have responded if I asked the question to myself. So,
Definitely. And
yeah,
I have a
yeah.
follow up question for you, Colin.
go ahead.
So obviously, I know you guys don't like plugging your company too much, in the podcast,
We've
but
done that plenty.
as far as and you guys have done an awesome job helping us, bring this idea to fruition. But as far as ATSAP and the business you've seen, what kind of you know consequences, I guess, has coronavirus had on you guys, in terms of just the mobile application market? I'm interested. Has it increased? Has it decreased? Because there's arguments for both sides.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. And to be honest with you, personally, with us, we have seen, it's been sort of good for business in that um, the brick and mortar stores kind of want to get a website up now or something online, uh, with their end business to basically help promote them in this time. A lot of restaurants kind of wanted mobile ordering and things like that, so that there was an increase in that type of demand in the market for sure. Um, and I think that the other thing that came out of this is like, kind of startup companies, like little side hustles. When you have a lot more time on your hands, at least like I think Colin would agree with me in that, you know, I've had a lot more time on my hands to kind of just think about things. And personally, we were able to get our podcast off the ground, come with some of our own ideas, and kind of bring those to life. And so I think that like this is a good time for people who have those crazy ideas. They think, this might be something, this could be an app, this could be a software, this could be a business one day for them to start that, and so, I truly believe that like this time, while it kind of sucks in the situation that we're in, I really think that, if people just stay positive, we will prevail. And, really cool ideas and companies will come out of this, and innovative companies that kind of push the envelope on how do we stay open when this thing happens again, if it does happen again. And that's the one thing I like about your app, is that I like the idea of not kind of giving into like the quarantine culture, and kind of just still kind of encouraging people to stay hopeful, to get together with your friends and socialize, and play games together. I think that's like an important aspect that people aren't talking about right now. It's still okay and it's still important to like be with family and friends and get together and have a good time.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, we're coming up on just about double the time that we anticipated, which is awesome. We love getting your opinions. We love continuing the discussion that we had earlier with you guys. It was great having two extra brains to pick instead of me and Antonino just kind of talking in one another. It can get a little tiring even in the first episode of our podcast. But if Antonino, if you don't have any more questions, do you guys have anything else that you want to either ask or just talk about?
Let me think for a minute.
Yeah, well, I guess one of the things I want to say is a big shout out to you guys, and thank you for kind of helping bring this app into a reality, and kind of actually making this real for us. It's been a really cool process. So a lot of thanks to you guys to helping us make that a thing.
Yeah, definitely. You guys were super hands-on with the whole process, very interactive, and quick. And it was, if there was any delays, they were on our end, and we thought we had everything figured out. So it was awesome that you guys were urging us to keep up to your pace. And yeah, we definitely appreciate all the hard work you guys put in, and we're extremely excited to see this on the App Store.
Yeah. Thank you guys. We really deeply appreciate that. Yeah, you guys have been cool people to work with as well. And like I said, Colin and I both agree that this is a really cool application. It's fun. This is one of like the first mobile games that we've built for a client. So this was really cool. It was really fun. It was kind of out of the normal applications that we build for our clients. So we are really excited for this thing to go live on the store.
Yeah, we're glad too. We're excited. But yeah, I guess also to anybody listening, if you download the app and you have any issues, questions, anything you want to add in as a prompt, maybe just get in touch with us, email us, do whatever you want. We use Google Firebase, which is kind of a platform that Google Cloud offers, where we can kind of add in different prompts and everything into our app at a moment's notice. It's live time, so it's just a cool feature that we included. So if you see anything that's wrong with the game or anything that you would like to see added, just reach out to us.
Cool. And we're not done yet. We got a lot of work ahead of us too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Very exciting stuff coming.
Far from
very
done.
exciting stuff coming from this app and you two guys. So thank you for taking the time out of your weekend to hop on the show. And we'll be talking to you guys soon.
Our pleasure. Great time.
Thank you,
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Byte Club. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, be sure to go to www.atsapllc.com/ByteClubPodcast to support us and help us create great future content. Until next time.